Liar, a book by W.P. Thrift, read by name redacted. Chapter 1. The Cat. Larry has never owned a cat. Remember that, because it's important. He wasn't really an animal person at all, which is a shame, because while living alone, having an animal companion in his life would have likely made his days far more cheerful, his purpose in life far more clear. He'd have had a little thing of his own to take care of, something to look forward to seeing when he came home from work. As it stood, he didn't even own a houseplant. There wasn't a living thing in this world that depended upon him. But he did have reports to fill out, deadlines to meet, a boss to keep happy, and luckily he did keep his boss quite happily as of late. In fact, Larry had just received a huge promotion. He was going to move up from his life in a cubicle to a life in an office of his very own. Not a corner office, not even an office with a window which would have allowed him to look out into the world and remember that life did exist outside of work, but it would be an office of his own all the same. He didn't look forward to this move. Going through years' worth of garbage inside his desk in his cubicle sounded like a pain to him. Cleaning it all out and moving stuff over in boxes to his office sounded exhausting. Part of him wanted to turn the promotion down just to get out, having to move desks, but that was just a crazy, fleeting thought that he would never go through with. This promotion meant much higher pay. He could get a new apartment, or maybe even get a loan to buy his own house. His parents had a house. They'd had it since they were newlyweds. When Larry left home 20 years ago, he expected to be able to buy his own house in no more than 2 or 3 years' time. Today, he still lived in the exact same one-bedroom apartment he'd lived at since he was 19. At 39 years old, he had just about resigned himself to living there forever. Larry may well stay in his apartment. Moving out of it and into a house sounded like such a pain to him. It was after work, and Larry was still wearing his suit and tie as he sat on a bench in the park halfway between his office building and his apartment. The walk to and from work wasn't so bad that he had to stop and rest halfway, but he still chose to. He'd never owned a car, and only regretted that when it was raining and he needed to phone a taxi or an Uber to get to work. He would definitely be able to afford a car now, but figuring out all the parking rules on his street was too much of a burden. If someone would just tell him you can park here, and point out where it was safe and promise nobody would ever take his spot, then he'd consider getting a car. It's not like he didn't know how to drive, he just never did. It did occur to him that he would only be just south of being able to afford a personal driver with this promotion. He could almost certainly afford to employ a driver if he chose not to buy a house. If he actually went to more places than work, the grocery store and home, he would have definitely considered doing this. The park wasn't that large. If he looked in any direction, he could see the city peeking over the trees sprinkled throughout the park. It was hard to lose himself in the illusion that he was in nature when he could still clearly hear cars honking as clearly as if he were walking down the sidewalk. He could still smell industrial chemicals from workers cleaning graffiti out of alleyways. Even as his black dress shoes pressed into the grass beneath the bench when he leaned forward, he knew they'd be back on paved ground less than a minute after he got up and started walking back to his place. A dirt trail ran past his bench. Joggers came and went along that trail. If he were into exercising, he would definitely consider coming here to jog. There was a pond nearby, and while the nearby city traffic was too loud to hear the bloops of the fish breaking the water's surface to eat mosquitoes, it would still be nice to see signs of life outside of the city as he jogged past the pond. It's not like he hated wildlife, he just wanted nothing to do with it personally. A dog with shining jet-black fur was trotting along in front of a lady that kept it on a short leash. It seemed far too rambunctious for her to give it any degree of freedom, yet the dog was young enough that it was dying to be set free to run and jump and go wild. Normally, Larry would have loathed the thought of a dog rushing up to him and jumping on his slacks, putting its sandy paws all over him. But when this tiny black dog ran up and did just that, he fought to suppress a smile. Dogs were great icebreakers, great ways to strike up conversations with a stranger. "Buster, no!" the lady scolded the dog. "Down! Down! I'm so sorry about that." "Cute dog," Larry said, then looked up at the lady and gave her a warm smile. "It's no problem at all. I love animals. Can't get enough of them." "Oh, me too," the lady said. "This one's just a baby, so I have to walk off all his energy or he'll be up all night. And he'll keep me awake too, won't you, Buster? Won't you keep Mommy awake?" "Mommy," Larry said under his breath, finding the attachments people had to pets amusing. "Yes, Mommy," she replied. "I'm a dog, Mom, and Buster here is my little son. Aren't you, Buster? Aren't you?" "Oh, no, I know exactly what you mean," Larry said. "My name's Larry. He didn't know anything about dogs, so to avoid possible follow-up questions, he said, "Cat person myself. I have the best cat in the world. You can call me a cat dad, in fact." "You have a fur baby, too? That's so adorable. Do you have any pictures?" she asked. "Afraid not. Just got a new phone and didn't transfer any pictures over to it yet," Larry shrugged. "Which is a shame, too, because you wouldn't believe how cool my cat looks. Have you heard of a chimera cat? A cat that's two different colors on both sides of their bodies. It's super rare, some kind of conjoined twins phenomena, kind of." "Two colors?" "Yeah. Sherbert is solid black on his right side and ginger on his left. Not only that, but he has one green eye, one blue." "What? Wow," she said, then began to start pulling away, ready to get back to her walk. "Okay, I know that's hard to believe, but in every other way he's a perfectly normal cat." He began to get up to walk with the lady as he spoke. "Say, my name's Larry. What's yours?" "I'm sorry, I've really got to be going. Buster needs to finish getting his walkies. But it was nice meeting you." "Yeah, nice meeting you. I didn't catch your name?" "Teresa. She sped up a bit when he tried to keep pace with her, so he slowed down and let her walk on off, away from him. Damn it, he thought, dejected. Larry didn't bother returning to the bench. He just decided to go home. All that cold cereal waiting for him there wasn't going to eat itself after all. The park was left behind what felt like a heartbeat later, and his feet hit the pavement of the cold, uncaring city. People were screaming at each other up ahead, and he tuned them out when he walked past, unable to clearly hear them even if he wanted to over all the noise from the congested traffic. Someone had the music in their car blaring, and the windows rolled down so everyone else was free to enjoy their tastes in music. Another car had a muffler that doubled as a gunshot sound effect, making Larry's heart speed up every time it erupted. Larry was largely tuned out of the world during his trek home until a phone store caught his eye. He'd easily be able to buy a new one soon as his first new check cleared, and while he couldn't afford it right now, he was in no rush to get home today, so he decided to step inside the store to check out the selection. He could go ahead and start getting a feel for what he wanted now. Someone with an unnervingly large fake smile approached him very quickly, the gold name tag on his blue shirt stating that his name was Kevin. "Can I help you find something today?" Kevin's words were so forceful that they had an air of desperation about them. Larry was struck deaf for a moment, a tad overwhelmed by Kevin's unnaturally friendly persona. Larry fumbled with his words when his capacity to speak returned to him. "I'm just browsing." "Oh, then be sure to let me know if you need anything at all. I'll be right over there whenever I'm not helping another customer, okay?" Larry nodded and shuffled away quickly. The store wasn't that large. He'd be able to spot Kevin from anywhere, along with the other three employees who looked ready to dive upon him like vultures. Clearly, they were either paid by commission or were in fierce competition with each other for some kind of bonus. Or maybe the store didn't have enough customers, so one of them would be laid off soon. Whatever was going on, they all seemed far too interested in him. One lady in particular never seemed to take her eyes off him, and just as he began to think that perhaps she was into him, he realized she wore a black shirt instead of a blue one, like the other three. She stood near the door and didn't have a computer of her own like the other three employees. She wasn't a clerk, she was security. Likely hoping to bust someone to justify keeping her job in this dead store, Larry evaluated, given how dead set she was on following his every movement. The store was empty except for himself and these four. He got the feeling that his paranoia of being the center of attention in a large room was no mere feeling. After a solid 10 minutes of him staring at two different seemingly identical phones, except one was $100 and the other was $3,500, he noticed the security lady finally gave up staring him down. She was busy messing around on her own phone at this point. If I was going to swipe a phone, this would be the perfect chance to do it, Larry thought. Except these are sealed to the counter. Maybe I'd tell them I wanted to buy one, ask to see another model, and swipe the one they just brought out while they've gone to the back? Larry smirked at the idea of trying to steal one of these nonsensibly expensive phones. He'd had his own phone for nearly 4 years now, and it was basically a relic technology-wise. He might as well donate it to the Smithsonian when he finally bought a new one. They'd laud his generosity for granting them such a rare and ancient find. Laughing at that thought, he noticed all 4 sets of eyes were on him again. No sudden movements or noises if I go to steal a phone. Got it, Larry thought. He had zero plans to actually try and steal a phone. It was a fun mental puzzle for him to run through. Though, if he did have the chance to swipe one, he wouldn't shed a single tear for the multi-billion-dollar corporations that make these stupid things as big of an investment as a new car with a tenth the life expectancy. It actually made him mad to think that he had to wait until his big promotion finally came along just to have the privilege to pay an exploitatively high price for something that had become necessary for everyday life. Going back and forth between all the different phones, he started to reach for his own phone to take a picture of them just so he'd remember which ones he was considering later on when Kevin returned again. Larry's fingers were at the top of his pocket, a fraction of a second away from reaching into his slacks and touching his phone, when he froze mid-action. "I see you're interested in our newest model," Kevin said. Larry's hand left his pocket as he crossed his arms. "I just don't see why this phone is so much cheaper. The specs are completely identical." "That's a very good question you have there. Here, let me explain. You see, if you follow this guide just under the phone, the actual fact of the matter is..." Kevin started talking nonsense tech babble that meant nothing to Larry as he tried to explain the differences between the two phones. He really wished Kevin would just stop, and when he couldn't find a break in the conversation, he just walked off. There was no tact to this. He just turned and left, much to Kevin's mortified levels of surprise. "WWAT, we have a very reasonable payment plan if price is the issue. You only have to pay installments of $19 over..." "I'll get back to you on that." Larry turned to face him and spoke loudly, interrupting him. "Okay, of course, sir. You have a nice day." Kevin's voice trembled. He knew he'd messed up, but had no idea why. Larry turned to leave, and the guard was standing closer to the door now. He glanced at her name tag too, Cunningham. Clearly her last name. So the employees had their first names pinned, and security had their last names pinned. If she wasn't carrying such an imposing demeanor, Larry thought she might even be really cute. It made him wonder what her first name was. He began to stop and ask her, but he could feel Kevin's shadow at his heels, desperation leaking out of the guy's every pore. He so wanted to get a sale in today, and would jump on the first opportunity to continue his conversation with Larry if given the chance. And that was a chance Larry would never want to give him, even if it meant giving up a chance to talk to Miss Cunningham. "Damn, even if she's scary, I really wanted to speak to her," Larry lamented the loss. Leaving the store, he headed home. He returned to the haze of his malaise as he absent-mindedly walked the rest of the way down the sidewalk straight back to his apartment building. He swiped his card to open the gate, went straight up to the third floor via the elevator, and treaded down the same stretch of hallway he'd traversed thousands of times before. At this point, he knew every crack in the wall, every dimple in the cement blocks, every old stain on the carpet. Unlocking his door and letting himself in, he saw two shining beads floating off the floor several yards away from him, one green and one blue. Startled by this, he reached for the light switch to see what kind of thing in his apartment could be shimmering like that. The lights flicked on, revealing a cat sitting in the middle of his living room. A very rare type of cat known as a chimera cat, half its body black, half its body ginger.